Hello everybody. It's a beautiful day here at C&S Corvettes in sunny Sarasota, Florida. This is your Corvette buddy Lyle, here to talk to you about more interesting, exciting, and hopefully helpful Corvette stuff. Welcome to 2024. This is our first video of the new year. Look forward to bringing you guys a lot of interesting content. And today we're going to be talking about a problem that if you spend any time on the Corvette forums or if you yourself have a C6 Corvette, you've probably heard of, but we're going to go in depth and kind of take some of the mystery out of that. Before we start, check this out. Guys, we've got another exciting sweepstakes that's new for the beginning of 2024. This one is for a 2024 Corvette Z06 Convertible with the Z07 Performance Package. The car is done in the beautiful red mist metallic tint coat. This thing is just gorgeous. And it is being offered by the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix Association. Now that may sound like it's a racetrack or something or a museum, but it's not. It's actually a charitable, and you can read about it down here, actually a charity that wants to produce a world-class vintage automotive event to raise funds to help provide residential care, treatment, and support for autistic and intellectually developmentally disabled individuals. So what they do is they take your contributions and they put on this big event, and then they're able to take the proceeds from that event that everybody does for free to help the charity and put it toward the charity. So pretty worthy thing to put money toward. And if you're going through our link here pinned in the top comments below, you're actually getting 30% more entries for free. So if I say you're going to do $50 right here, you click on that, you'll see that our promo code C&S is already entered up here, and you're getting 12 extra tickets on top of the 40 that the 40 entries you're paying for, and you'll just put in your name and your information, your credit card and stuff, and then you are automatically entered. And this drawing will be taking place on October 8th, 2024. So if by chance you're watching this video after that date, come back to a more recent video and you can get on one of the current sweepstakes at that time. But this is a really amazing car for a really amazing cause. If you guys want to participate, I wish you the best of luck, and if you guys win it, I certainly expect to hear all about it. Thanks. Okay guys, you may or may not have heard that C6s, specifically late 07 through 2013 C6 Corvettes, have a problem with this horrible fuel smell that you get when you fill up your tank. And you park your car in the garage and your entire garage fills with gas fumes. It's a very dangerous and very worrisome thing. I'm here to take a little bit of the mystery out of that and to provide a little bit of not only explanation but recommendation on how to handle that problem. And as we are here to help with this, this is going to be a video that you can share with the mechanic you have doing the job in your neck of the woods, who may not be as familiar with Corvettes as we are here. So let's start at the beginning. Way back in 1997, when the C5 Corvette was introduced, it was the first time the Corvette used what we call saddlebag gas tanks, meaning that there is a plastic gas tank immediately behind the driver's seat and a plastic gas tank that is the mirror image of it behind the passenger's seat. And they sit like this, and between them is a giant connecting hose. The driver's side has the fuel pump and the fuel level sensor, and the right hand or passenger tank has a separate pump that regulates the level of fuel between the tanks. That system worked pretty good. It's been used in a bunch of different cars over the years. This is just the first time it was used in Corvette. Now, back in that time, the fuel tank sending units were accessible from the bottom because they kind of went in like from the inside corners upward. So you didn't have to take a whole lot of stuff apart to be able to change that out. It was actually a pretty user-friendly interface if you had to do some fuel pump or fuel tank sending unit work. Starting in either very late 2007 or the beginning of 2008, I've heard both, they changed the tank design. And they made it so that the fuel tank sending unit was put in from the top of the gas tank. Perhaps they had leakage issues or they were concerned with leakage issues. I've never heard about them, but that's not to say that GM didn't know more than I did at that time. But so this new unit goes in from the top. And That's why you have problems today. Not only did they change the position of the unit, they also changed the material of the top of the unit. In the C5 run and the early C6 run, they actually had a metal plate on the outside that was the interface where the tubes and the plugs and stuff came in to the fuel tank sending unit. Well, starting in 08, or early 07, as I said, they moved to this unit. As you can see, this unit is all plastic. So what you're seeing here is this is the top. This piece right here, this disc, is the only piece you can see when it is sitting installed in the gas tank. This little guy here, that is your space age fuel level sensor, right? And everything else here is the fuel pump and all the plugs and everything. Here's where the problem comes in. A lot of, even back in 08 and 09, when these cars were still really new, GM and shops like ours started seeing complaints about, man, I go fill up my gas tank and this thing just stinks for like 2 days until I'm down to half a tank. Here's what happens. This plastic here ages, gets brittle, kind of like the shifter cable grommets that we do. You know, just aging plastic tends to shrink, brown, and get brittle. What happens is this little 90 degree right here, see this? This cracks. And what happens is the fuel pressure is coming into this hose, so it bleeds fuel out over the top of this. So that's where it starts. Now, let me show you how the tank looks. Well, this is big, but I'll show you the top of it. This is the top of a driver's side fuel tank for an 08 or through 2013. See this big green O-ring here? That's where that module, that entire big white plastic thing sits down in, right? Well, what happens is this flat surface here gets coated with fuel. And as that fuel gets to a certain level, it starts running down the sides of the tank. And that's where you start getting your fuel smell. And more importantly, that's where you start getting your fire hazard. So clearly, the answer to this is to replace this. Okay, well, as it is located, as we see at the top of the tank, that means you have to drop the fuel tank out of the car to access this. When you do that, well, you got another problem. Let me show you what I'm talking about. When you drop that tank out, you have to undo the connection on the big cross tube that goes between the two tanks. And inside that cross tube are two, let me see if I can get you to see this, two smaller tubes, right? And they go all the way through. Those two smaller tubes connect to this plastic hose assembly that is actually inside that big black gas tank I just showed you. So these right here clip into those two little nozzles coming out of that big corrugated fuel line, right? Here's the problem. What do we say about plastic as it ages? It gets brittle, right? So if you are trying to do this, or your shop is trying to do this, by just dropping the entire tank assembly out, the problem you have is you have to disconnect this from this. This is still up in the car, right? So this comes out. Okay, so you got everything apart. You go ahead and put your new sending unit in, you followed all the instructions, everything's done correctly. Now you got a problem. This is above the transmission, okay? Your exhaust is in the way, all kinds of other stuff's in the way. So you somehow have to manage to get those brittle little plastic clips firmly secured onto here in a space about that wide, which is not really possible. So the correct answer is you have to drop the rear suspension, the transmission, and the differential out of the car to have access to all of this. Because the way we do it, this stays in the car, but we now have full access under here to bend it down, get a good connection with that little hose. By the way, those little hoses, this little black hose assembly, what I do with it? This little guy, it's still available from GM, but it's only available sometimes. it is not always available. So used ones like this one go up to like 200 bucks when they're not available from GM because, well, you need it. So point being, if you're the type of person who buys parts to have on the shelf in case you ever need them, I would highly recommend getting this piece. I'll figure out the part number and put it in the comments below, but this is definitely something that if you are the type of person who wants to be prepared for the future, buy this little guy and have it on your shelf. That way, if and when your C6 starts leaking, you don't have to go hunting for one and paying extra for a used one. Anyway, back to the install. So this, now we can hook up that hose, everything, blah, blah, blah. Now, so the exhaust is out of the car, the rear suspension, the transaxle's out of the car. You've got your new sending unit in your pump, in your tank. You put the tank back up, hook this back up, fuel system's happy. Now you still have the entire rear suspension in your transaxle sitting on the floor, right? So this is where you run into, hey, since we're this far, should we pull the torque tube and rebuild it right now? The answer to that, of course, is yes, you should, because you've already done, book time on that is like 8 hours to drop and replace the rear transaxle. To do a torque tube, it's like 16 hours in and out. So you're already more than halfway there, and you've already completed your fuel job. So at this point, I would highly recommend you talk to your shop, or if you're doing this in your own shop, seriously consider pulling the torque tube out and rebuilding it, replacing the bearings, the couplers, and all that stuff. Do the rear main engine seal. If you have a stick shift car, it'd be a great time to do a clutch. Again, you're trying to maximize the things that you can accomplish while in doing this giant chunk of labor. So that's really important. Part of the reason I wanted to make this video was not just to educate you car owners out there, but I wanted to show all these individual parts and whatnot and the idiosyncrasies of this job, so that if you take your car into ABC Automotive to have this job done, have them watch this video, because this is going to help them do a better job for you, and you won't have to bring it back and have it done twice. So that is pretty much it as far as the sending units for these. What I will tell you specifically about the sending unit, hang on. When you buy the GM sending unit, it comes with this float and this rheostat, this assembly, right? It comes brand new. Now there are other companies out there like Bosch that make this. It is arguably as good or better than the GM brand, but I will caution you, it does not come with this, right? So if you're gonna buy an off-brand, if you're not buying the GM, make sure that you or your mechanic know whether this is included. If it isn't, you're gonna wanna buy a new one at the same time you buy your pump, so that this can be replaced at the same time. Because you really don't wanna get this all the way apart, all the way back together. Breathe a sigh of relief and have a cold beer for a job well done, and then realize your fuel gauge doesn't freaking work. In which case you've gotta start all over again. Word to the wise, been there, done that. If you guys have any questions or comments about this problem, if you have additional questions about anything to do with the fuel system in a C6 or a C5, by all means put it in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can, and if I don't know the answer, I'll do my best to find out. In the meantime, guys, have a great 2024 beginnings. This is going to be a great year for all of us, I hope, and we'll talk to you soon.